Actor Andrew McCarthy of the infamous 80s Brat Pack seeks to figure out how that label affected some of his fellow actors and actresses from that era. Let's talk about the new Hulu documentary, Brats. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my documentary review for the new film Brats on Hulu. This is actually a movie everybody is talking about. It's currently #1 on the Hulu movies chart. And look, for people of my generation that grew up with these Brat Pack movies, the John Hughes movies, I think this is a cultural touchstone for sure. And so a lot of people are going to be interested in the Andrew McCarthy movie Brats. He directed this. He is sort of the interviewer in this. We'll talk about all of this here momentarily. First, though, let me welcome you into Dan Reviews It. Thank you for finding this video. We do movie and TV reviews here on the channel, and just about every day I post something new, so there's always a lot to check out. And I just recently did a documentary review of something else, which was the Movie Pass, Movie Crash film on Max, which was all about Movie Pass. And I was going to actually do a whole sort of documentary overview of a few different ones coming out, the Jim Henson one and the Beach Boys one on Disney Plus, and there was a couple other ones I was looking at. But instead of throwing this one into that, I figured, you know what, a lot of people are talking about this movie, so, let's just make it its own video. I think there's enough to talk about here, certainly, to make this a full-fledged review. So, all right, basically the premise of this is Andrew McCarthy, who obviously has been, an actor from way back in the 80s with, Almost Fire and the Mannequin movies and, a lot of those sort of 80s, cultural touchstone movies. And he's still, working. I keep seeing him pop up in various things. But the moniker The Brat Pack, which was coined by a journalist who actually was covering a story on Emilio Estevez and sort of coined that term, and that, for whatever reason, caught fire, and they go into the, some of the reasons that it did, in the movie. But that name, caught fire and then started being applied to a handful of these hot up-and-coming young actors and actresses, people like Rob Lowe, Demi Moore, Emilio Estevez, etc. So this movie explores basically what that term Brat Pack meant to these people. Most of them found it disparaging, but did it affect their careers? Did it affect their mental state at the time? And so this movie seeks to kind of answer some of those questions. However, it really turns out to be more of kind of a therapy session on camera for McCarthy himself. And that is a huge detriment to the movie. I really wanted them to explore more than just the name, the Brat Pack. You have somebody like Demi Moore or Rob Lowe or Emilio Estevez, on camera, and all you're really chatting with them is, how did the name Brat Pack affect you? What kind of roles do you think it cost you, and whatever. And that's okay. I understand he has, a really, it's stuck in his craw all these many years later. In fact, he actually talks to the journalist himself who coined that term. And is fairly unapologetic for it, in the moment. But, he talks to some linguists, and it's mildly interesting. But I think there's so many missed opportunities here to really dive in deeper to the actual culture. Like, they do talk a little bit about how that sort of era was the first time that teens were being catered to on the screen. Those John Hughes type movies and movies like, the shirt I'm wearing, Back to the Future, and all of the quote unquote Brat Pack type movies, and The Outsiders and The Karate Kid. For the first time, the vast majority of movies were being sort of explored with teens at the center of it. And realistically so. The John Hughes movies have a lot of very realistic dialogue in them, and so do some of the other ones. But I think they really could have dove down that avenue a little more. And I think for me personally, that is definitely what I wanted to see in this movie. I didn't really want to see Andrew McCarthy going from town to town and actor to actor asking, hey, when they called you a brat packer, what was that like for you? Over and over again. It gets very routine. And, there are two very big missing pieces of this movie which do get touched on. Molly Ringwald is talked about. I forget, was it Rob Lowe maybe that asked about her? And McCarthy says, yeah, you know what, I talked to her. she didn't really want to be, or she said she would think about it, but she wants to kind of look forward in her career and not past. And didn't know if she would want to be a part of it. Turns out she wasn't. And then Judd Nelson, he's like trying to get on the phone the whole thing, so he's not really in it either. And for me, those are two pretty big linchpins. The Breakfast Club is a huge Brat Pack movie to me. And then there's this question of who is even in the Brat Pack, which gets discussed a little bit too, because Demi Moore was surprised that people consider Molly Ringwald part of the Brat Pack. I think that's pretty silly. But Leah Thompson also gets interviewed from Back to the Future, and I never once even considered that she would be a member of the quote-unquote Brat Pack. And somebody else said, was it Judd Nelson, I think in a flashback interview, said something like, there is no real Brat Pack. It doesn't really exist. It's just a sort of catch-all name for these people. But, he talks to Ali Sheedy, and he talks to a lot of the people that were involved at the time. But the interviews go pretty much the same. I think there are a ton of missed opportunities here. It's really unfortunate because I think none of these people necessarily would get a documentary on their own. Like, I know Demi Moore wrote a book. Some of them have written books. In fact, this movie is based on a book that Andrew McCarthy wrote. I think it had the word brat in the title. I forget what it was called, but he did write a book. But I don't know that we need to see a whole Demi Moore documentary or a whole Rob Lowe documentary. It makes sense to sort of have them all in this context, but why not explore more than just how did the Brat Pack name affect you? So yes, it's nice to see some of these people reflecting back on those moments. And like I said, they do sort of venture into some of that territory a little bit about, okay, here's why this term was coined, or here's why these movies were so lightning in a bottle at the box office. I would have liked to see a lot more of that and a lot less of the Andrew McCarthy therapy show. And by the way, McCarthy is probably my least known member of the Brat Pack. I don't know if I've ever seen any of his movies. I've not watched St. Elmo's Fire. I didn't see Mannequin. I know it was all the rage at the time, but I thought the concept was kind of dumb, so I never watched it. I think he's in Weekend at Bernie's, right? I never watched that. So of all of the Brat Pack members, he's the one I care about the least anyway. So look, for me, this was a huge missed opportunity. Obviously, a lot of people are watching it. I don't know if they're getting, the same reaction from it I am. I leave Brats with a C-. But you can stream it now on Hulu. It, like I said, has been at number one all weekend at the top of their movie charts. So a lot of people interested in this. I don't know. Maybe you'll agree with me, maybe not. But thank you for watching either way, and we'll see you next time on Dan Reviews It. Bye.